So box, 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 box.
Hi, my name is Rochelle and you're watching or listening to BoxBox F1 Pod. Welcome to the Japanese Grand Prix. If you thought a race couldn't get more boring than China, guess again. Japan was a little dull on track. However, thanks to our great pals at Red Bull, they kept things pretty interesting off track. And I guess all the interesting things that did happen on track were thanks to Red Bull as well. Well, mostly Max, but I guess 3 cheers for Red Bull. With that thrilling introduction, let's dive into Yuki, Liam, Red Bull in general, McLaren's unique strategy, aka no strategy, and also we'll do a quick check-in with the rookies, see where they're up to, and more. So while we chat, I'll be making okonomiyaki, which is basically a Japanese cabbage pancake, if you don't know. And actually, today's meal was chosen by my friend Sophie from Norway. Shout out Sophie. She's a big fan of Kiwis and Yuki Tsunoda, and I fear both have disappointed her this week. So maybe this virtual pancake will make her feel better. All right, so with that, it's time for the digital warm-up. Okay, so before we get started, I prepared the base batter ahead of time, which had flour, salt, sugar, like a half a teaspoon, dashi broth, and nagimo, which was very sticky. But grated it up and mixed it in the batter, and now it's resting in the fridge. And in the meantime, I'm going to be working on the mix-ins, which is basically chopping up a bunch of cabbage. I'm supposed to use just regular cabbage, but I only had half, so I'm going to be adding in some Napa cabbage, pickled ginger, and I'm supposed to use tempura scraps. I could not find any for some strange reason, so I will be using panko breadcrumbs and just hope for the best. So while I get chopping, let's kick things off with lap 1. F1 news. So, in case you haven't heard, Red Bull has replaced Liam Lawson with Yuki Tsunoda. Now, if you remember last year, or if you watched Drive to Survive, you'll know there was like a fight for the seat, which publicly they pretended was also between Checo, who was currently in the seat, but in DTS, they said Checo was never in contention basically anymore. He was out of there. So it was basically between Yuki and Liam, and they chose Liam. They said they needed a rookie energy. They wanted someone fast with Liam's attitude, etc., etc. Basically said, Yuki is not the guy for us. They survived all of 2 races with Liam before they were like, you know, Liam is not the guy for us. So they decided to swap Liam and Yuki 2 races in. There was a post on Instagram that was liked by Max Verstappen that said, I'm getting a bit tired of all the comments that F1 is the toughest sport in terms of performance, and when you're under-delivering, you've got to face the consequences. Yes, you got to perform. Yes, the pressure is insane, but in my opinion, this comes closer to bullying or a panic move than actual high athlete achievements. They made a decision, fully aware, gave Liam 2 races only to crush his spirit. Don't forget the dedication, hard work, and success Liam has put into his career so far to achieve the level where he is now. I remember my own blood, sweat, and tears. This is a former F1 driver. Blood, sweat, and tears, and that was to reach F1, let alone driving for an absolute top team. Yes, he underperformed the first 2 races, but if anyone's aware of that, it's himself. Perhaps he has suggested this himself. If not, I wish Liam all the strength and courage to get to the grid in Japan. Trust yourself, get your head up, and prove them wrong. Max Verstappen liked this post. And everyone immediately was like, Max disagrees with Red Bull. Which, I don't know why that's a surprise to people. Max has always been super supportive of the rookies and about their growth and of his teammates. He never said anything bad about Checo, ever. And he was asked about it in Suzuka, and he said, no, that was not a mistake. I know sometimes you accidentally like things by mistake. This was not one of those times. I liked it on purpose, and I think that speaks for itself. And then he was basically like, I told the team my thoughts, and we're going to keep that within the team. But like, it's clear what I think based on me liking that post, which, fair enough. I think that's commendable that everyone knows how he feels, but he doesn't need to make further comments about it. And the thing is, like, they're all right. Like, Red Bull made the active decision to put Liam in that seat, which means they have decided to put basically a rookie, especially compared to Yuki, he is a rookie, into that seat because they believed in him, or so they said. Instead, they gave him 2 races, destroyed him, and then were like, bye, which I find rather peculiar because I'll get to it in a second. I also just want to read Liam's post really quickly. He posted a picture of himself doing a presentation at, like, I don't know, 6, 7 in school about why he wants to be a Red Bull driver. And he wrote, "Being a Red Bull driver has been my dream since I was a kid. It's what I've worked for towards my whole life. It's tough, but I'm grateful for everything that's brought me to this point. To every one of you who stood by me, thank you for all the support. It means the world. Thank you, Visa, Cash App, RB, for the warm welcome. I'm excited and ready to go work at one of my favorite places, Japan." And there was a cute video of him being, like, welcomed back to Racing Bulls, and it's very wholesome. And, like, I'm glad he's not just out completely and he's going back somewhere he knows, but at the same time, he's still being demoted in a very, very public way. And it doesn't completely make sense. I saw this video on TikTok where this guy was basically like, this is Red Bull right now. And then he, like, puts a kettle to boil water and immediately takes it off. And he's like, why isn't this hot yet? And then he, like, puts a cake in the oven to bake and then closes the door, opens the door, takes the cake out, goes, why isn't this baked yet? Just, like, stuff like that. And I could feel like that sums it up pretty well. Like, putting aside my feelings for Yuki specifically about him as a driver, and I do love him. So putting all of that aside, I just want to talk about Liam specifically. I think it's entirely unfair of Red Bull to judge Liam for his performance based on these first 2 races. The first race was in Australia, which tested even, like, the most senior of drivers, Fernando Alonso. Like, half of the grid was out during that race, and they're like, well, that's count 1 against Liam. It's not like no one else made the exact same mistakes. It was a very wet track. He is essentially a rookie. Like, okay. Then we go to China. Yes, he definitely should have performed better in China. However, he's never raced in China before. He's driving what literally looks like a hunk of junk, and he massively underperformed. But that's, like, 2 weeks into his job. Imagine you show up to work, like, and as you're getting acclimated and being onboarded, they're like, bye. I think that's crazy behavior. And also, when they talk about why they got rid of him, they said they had a duty of care to move him back to Racing Bulls. And, like, that's literally bullshit. How is this a duty of care? This is what you think a duty of care is? Humiliating him, not supporting him, putting him in a position, and then not giving him the tools to even attempt to succeed. Like, we know that Red Bull is super trigger happy when it comes to letting people go, but 2 weeks is, like, a new low for them. And I also just don't understand, like, it's not like Yuki wasn't available the first time around. He was literally right there for them to take, to use. And they were like, nah, we want a rookie. We want this, like, crazy attitude that Liam has. This is the right choice. And now they're like, actually, we really need Yuki's expertise. His expertise, you didn't need it 2 weeks ago? And also, you know who else had expertise? Checo. Like, at some point, Red Bull needs to really look inside of themselves and think, hey, 4 people have driven this car and only 1 has managed to get it across the finish line. And that's mostly because of him, not the car. If 3 other people with varied levels of experience are struggling with this car, maybe the problem is you. To quote Christian Horner himself, if you've got a problem, change your fucking car. Sorry. I would very much like to see what Toto printed out back in the day. If he was just making a really good guess, or if he actually had evidence about how shit their car was and how Checo was actively complaining about it. Checo was actively complaining about it, and everyone was ignoring him, all of us, the team, etc., etc. I don't know. But about Yuki, his transition has been rather smooth. He has been part of the Red Bull family for a while now. He definitely came into this much calmer and chiller than than Liam did, but I guess that's the expertise everyone's obsessed with all of a sudden. And I do think his attitude is right. God forbid that changes, and he can't get that car under control and his spirits start to get crushed. I could not handle Yuki's spirits being crushed, honestly. I don't know what will happen to him. I do think he's strong. He's a strong fella, but Red Bull has crushed many a spirits. He did say that both Pierre and Checo reached out to him to give him some advice and wish him luck. We all knew Pierre was going to because, he's been through there and they're friends, but I'm impressed that Checo did. But also, Checo was always a nice guy, so I don't know why I'm actually surprised. All right, well, that's it with poor Yuki and Liam, and we'll see how all of that pans out. This race was not great for Yuki. This was also, I think there was also the added pressure of it being his home race and being able to race for Red Bull finally. So I think that's part of it, but also the car is hard to drive. So what, Yuki was gonna put it into P3 within the first race? Like, no. Okay. Lap 2 off-duty F1. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, obviously, Oscar won in China. And later that week, McLaren had posted a marketing video of him playing some sort of phone game. And Oscar's mom commented and be like, so when you're done playing on your phone, could you please call me back so I can congratulate you on your win in China? I love that when she can't reach him, she just comments publicly. In other news, at a fan event, Lewis said that he wants to design a Ferrari. I mean, is that like up for doing? Do people design Ferraris besides a very exclusive collection of Italian men? But if he can get that brand collab, like, I don't know, it's not Gucci, but if he can do that, props to him. I can't remember if we've discussed this, but at the beginning of the season, Jack and Pierre both got buzz cuts. And it was like very bizarre that it happened all at the same time. They looked like they were part of like, it was like a Flavio prison couture that they were like sporting, and I don't understand why it happened all at the same time. I don't think Pierre has said anything about it. Jack said it was hot in Australia and that's why he did his. It's very strange. They both just showed up one day with buzz cuts and they still have them. I don't know why Pierre made that choice. They both were like, had very like famously floppy hair, so I'm not really sure what prompted this change. Also, so F1 posted how well do you know your teammate video, and I just want to take a moment to say RIP to Carlos and Charles, because Charles did not participate this year. Why? I mean, I don't know, but my assumption is because Lewis doesn't do these videos usually. So that would be my guess. But Charles always really loved these videos, and I hope he's going to be in other ones, and it's just this one he couldn't participate in, but I'm still sad that we couldn't see him in this because he loved these. But speaking of Charles, speaking of Charles, Carlos did incredible with his new teammate Alex, and again, this just supports my theory that the common denominator is Carlos. He's easy to get to know and he gets to know everyone. Yeah, him and Alex definitely dominated. The only one that made me laugh, well, they all made me laugh, but the one that made me laugh the most was when Carlos was like, I'm not a very stubborn person. Yeah, Carlos, you seem pretty stubborn. I enjoyed that Gabriel and Nico's relationship is basically just Gabriel thinking that Nico is really old and Nico thinking that Gabriel is just a baby. And all of their answers just basically follow that theme exactly. Lance and Fernando were literally silent the whole time. They just picked up their things, smiled. They were mostly right, honestly, about each other, but like, just like with no words. They did not want to be there. They were there because they had to be. Apparently they have to be, but Lewis is exempt. Although Kimi and George did not participate in this one either. And I do want to say that they were asked which one between your teammates is more memeable. And Alex was the only one that went, well, it's George. Not my teammate, but it's George. And that is correct. George is the most memeable person on the grid. Alex did say himself, but the answer there is definitely Carlos between the two of them. Carlos's face is something else. It's just like a walking, talking meme. One thing that really grinded my gears was they were asked who complains most on the radio. And Oscar said Lando because, duh. And Lando said Oscar. Even if you don't want to admit that you bitch on the radio all the time, which you do, Lando, I believe Oscar has said like a total of 20 words since coming into F1, and most of them have been okay. So I feel like the argument, just like if your teammate was anyone else, perhaps you could make an argument, Lando, but your teammate is Oscar. And Oscar is mum on the radio. And even if he talks, he's like not complaining. So a little more self-awareness, although I'm sure he'll say that he was being sarcastic and that people just didn't understand his sense of humor. Lando girlies, do not come for me. I'm sorry. Also, Lance has been randomly very active on TikTok, and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. He posted a video of him just sitting in a chair. Someone else must be running his account, but he posted a video of him just sitting in the chair, and it was like, when your social battery ran out 20 minutes ago and you still have to be here, or something like that. And my friend was like, do you think 20 minutes ago was him filming that Do You Know Your Teammate video? And honestly, probably. Also, Kimi was on Fast and the Curious this week, and he was asked if he's still in school, and he was like, yes, I am. I'm in my last year, and it is very important to my mother, even though I do not want to be here, but alas, doing it for my mom. And the interviewers were like, have you asked George or Toto to help you with your math homework? And he was like, no. And they're like, you should ask George to help you with your math homework. And I would honestly kill to see Kimi like bob along to George and be like, George, can you help me with my maths, as they call it? I would pay to see George's face. Also, it is crazy that he's still in school. He was like, after this Grand Prix, I have to find a time to fit in a math test. And it's like, how do you even say like, hey teacher, can I have an extension? I need to go race in the Japanese Grand Prix. Crazy. But I'm very impressed that he's finishing school, and I'm glad his mom is making him, because you never know what's going to happen. Also, other education's important no matter how fast you drive a car. And finally, today, race day was Oscar's birthday. McLaren got him a little muffin situation. I don't know if there was more cake somewhere and that was just his welcome little cupcake. I hope so. But Oscar was very cute, very quiet. He's like, oh, thanks. He's a man of very few words, except for, of course, when he won't stop complaining on the radio. Oscar just never shuts up on there. All right, lap 3, trackside at Suzuka. So George Russell, I don't know if you guys remember, but last year, this little Japanese kid went viral because he was like obsessed with George, and he just was always shouting, George, George. And Mercedes set up a little meetup between them, and it was very cute. The little kid got so shy. He was wearing all his George gear. He has like a little Hawaiian shirt with George's face on it. He got so shy when he met George. I don't think he fully processed that like the real George Russell was standing in front of him. But eventually he just like got up and like threw his arms around George, and it was so cute. And George gave him a little pair of gloves, and it was just there was a lot of really cute kids. There was like these 3 kids. I think it was dressed as Oscar, Lando, and Charles. I think it was that. And they had their helmets on. They never took their helmets off. And Charles like took a picture with his little mini-me and was trying to like speak to him as much as he could with the language barrier. It was just very cute. George and Max, I don't know why I said that. Yuki and Max did their first marketing video together where they were like writing in Japanese. Although I'm pretty sure they would have done this probably regardless. They would have just been all 4 with the Racing Bulls, but I guess they're trying to avoid putting Yuki and Liam in marketing content together, which is smart. I don't feel like Liam is particularly friendly towards Yuki at the moment. Don't really blame him, not that he was that nice to him before. But you'll be happy to know Isaac and Yuki's friendship lives on. There was some fun fan clips captured of like Yuki like running up and like chucking Isaac's hat off. And then they're just like little brothers. Isaac ran by and like hit him or something. Like they're just like little brothers. But George and Max did this little marketing video and they were like writing in Japanese. And at one point in the beginning, Max is like, "You really want to be a chef, right?" And Yuki was like, "Yeah, I do." And I just thought it was wholesome. Max really knows Yuki. I know they've done a lot of stuff together considering they're in the same family, team-wise. But I feel like Max has been very like, with the upcoming birth of his child, he's just giving a lot of father energy. Like he's so cute with the rookies. The way he embraced Liam, the way he's embracing Yuki, like he really is like, he's acting like he's like 55 when he's actually just 27 or whatever. But I love it. Lewis took the Ferrari team bowling, which he used to do with Mercedes all the time. And they captioned it "New Traditions" for the Ferrari team. And it was cute. Like the photographer went ham taking like all these action shots of Charles and Lewis bowling. I'm glad he's bringing new traditions to this team and he's trying to make it like a family situation and make everyone get along and work well together. Still not sure how his relationship with his engineer is, but all right. That was pretty much it for the digital warm-up. That could have been better. That's it for the digital warm-up. On to analysis. Okay, analysis. So before we get into quality and the race, my favorite thing about Liam and Yuki swapping is just thinking about all of the creative teams out there across F1, Red Bull, Racing Bulls, the Suzuka circuit, etc. All of these creative teams that had to really hustle. Granted, they had 2 weeks, so it was not horrible. There's been times when they had a much shorter turnaround period to just change all of the materials that have already been done. I'm sure Yuki's face was plastered all over Japan wearing Racing Bull uniform. Racing Bull probably had all this stuff ready. Red Bull had all this stuff ready with Liam. And also the opening credits, someone had to edit new suits and swap their places. It's so funny to me. And also considering Isaac did better than both Liam and Yuki this week, who the hell knows how many more times the 2025 opening credits is going to change. That editor probably has a folder with a V1, V2, and a V3 coming up very soon. All right, quality. So Isaac Hadjar had an issue with a seatbelt. I think his junk was stuck in it. And he was complaining so loudly on the radio. And he's like, "I'm so sorry. This is the reason we don't do well today. I'm so sorry if I'm complaining about this, but this is so uncomfortable." It was kind of funny. Poor kid. Also, Max also had one of his greatest quality laps ever, which is impressive given what he's driving. And I think this just proves again and again that it is him, not the car. And Carlos got a penalty for blocking Lewis as they were approaching turn 1, apparently. So he will start 3 places lower in P15. Great start at Williams for Carlos. He's had a better run as an engineer at Williams than as a driver, but I have high hopes. All right, so the starting grid is Max Verstappen, Lando, Oscar, Charles, George, Kimi, Isaac, Lewis, Alex, Ollie, Pierre, Fernando, Liam, Yuki, Carlos, Nico Hulkenberg, Gabriel Bortoleto, Esteban Ocon, Jack Doohan, and Lance Stroll. All right, so as we move on to the race, we are also going to move on over to the other side of the kitchen so that I can start making these. I don't know, it's like gonna make 100, but BRB. Okay, we're back. So the race. The start, Max, as always, got ahead of Lando pretty well. The commentator was like, "Surprisingly good start from Norris, though." So Lando, I don't think, is ever escaping the reputation of shitty starts, ever. But also, it was a very calm start for Japan. Usually there's a bunch of incidents in the first lap of the Japanese Grand Prix, particularly the start. And I think this was just foreshadowing how calm the rest of the race was going to be. Just going to emulate the start and just be boring. I want to quickly talk about radio. I don't know if they've just been airing more of Alex Albon's radio or if he's getting progressively more aggressive. Like last time he was like, I'm perfect, leave me alone. This week he was like, these shifts are so bad. What have we done to them? It was shit at the start. It's shit now. And his engineer was like, okay, could you be more specific so we could try to fix it? And Alex was like, it's the same problem I've already told you about. And then later, he again went on the radio and goes, honestly, you guys make absolutely no sense. And his engineer just goes, okay. And Alex goes, it's ridiculous. And his engineer was like, Ollie Bierman just pitted. And Alex goes, then pit before then. And his engineer was like, trust me, it was worse before. Alex is so pissy on the radio these days, my goodness. Also, Lewis had a bit of an aggressive radio. He literally called in and said, where am I slow? And his engineer lists the turns that and the corners he's slow in. And Lewis goes, yeah, but like by how much? And it's like, well, you asked where. You actually didn't ask how much. Not to be on Ferrari's side in terms of comms, but also Charles had a very funny radio where he was basically like, his engineer was like, we're suggesting engine braking +1. And Charles goes, yes, you've already told me and I didn't do it for a reason. Okay. He's really on his last rope with them. I also can't believe that Crofty is comparing, they were talking about how badly Carlos is doing. And he was basically like, well, and someone was like, well, actually, technically Carlos already got his first point with Williams. And he was like, well, he got it in the same way that Logan got his first point because people got disqualified, which like, it's true, but like, don't say it. Also, one thing that needs to be discussed is McLaren's strategy. First of all, there was a really funny moment when from the commentators and they said, Lando has said that his tires are fine, but Oscar is faster. So I wonder how he'd describe his tires. Super fine? And that's basically McLaren during a race. They're just like fine. One is fine. The other one is super fine. And McLaren can't decide who to prioritize. Even if someone is super, super fine, they still don't want to deprioritize the one who's doing fine. And so basically Suzuka is like notoriously challenging for overtakes. And in fact, at the beginning of the race, the commentator said this is a strategy race, but you can overtake potentially. Spoiler alert, you can't really. I think there may have been one overtake. But it's also like, people weren't really, well, McLaren specifically wasn't really leveraging the fact that this is a strategy race. And it was like kind of confusing why they just weren't making any strategy calls. Basically, they have a really fast car. So a 2-3 finish was probably very likely no matter what strategy they played around with. Who was 2, who was 3 was up for debate. And there was a potential for first. Probably not particularly high considering how well Max was doing today. But they still could have at least, you know, tried, not just like been like refused to prioritize one driver over the other. By the way, this was supposed to be like a Sakura Blossom and it was supposed to be pink, but I didn't have grapefruit juice. I only had orange juice. So now it just looks like dirt. Oops. But basically, if Max keeps challenging them the way that he's been doing, they have a lot of 2-3 finishes in the future if they don't start prioritizing or like playing around with strategy. And not in the way like where they made panic strategy calls last year, but like thought through strategic strategy calls. Cause like they still aren't thinking like a world champion or like a competitive team. They are just like coasting by out of fear that they will make the wrong call, which is not really what they're supposed to be doing. They have like a really, really strong drivers lineup. They just really have to start making decisions. Not that I'm a huge fan of like team orders and prioritizing, but like switch off then, or like just go based off of the performance in that race if you don't want to pick one or the other, but like do something. They're just like doing nothing. This race could have been at least somewhat more interesting if they were at least trying to challenge Max, but they weren't even really trying to do that. I mean, Lando was chasing him down, Oscar was chasing down Lando, but like, not really. All right, the most exciting thing that happened this race was the Lando and Max grass incident. So Lando and Max were pitted at the same time for whatever reason. Max was released and then Lando was released, but Max was already driving out of the pit lane, and he kept his racing line. He didn't swerve, he didn't push anywhere, he didn't go left. He couldn't go left because, like out of Lando's way, because then he would be penalized. And he couldn't go right because he would hit Lando. So it was up to Lando to like fit in behind Max, like slow down a bit and fit in behind Max, as opposed to try to push forward. And he really, like on the radio, he was like, he forced me off. And Max was like, he drove himself onto the grass, which he did. There was some possibility that he was released too early, but he wasn't. He was released fine as long as he had like shuffled in behind Max, but he didn't do that. He ended up on the grass. And when they were watching the incident in the cool down room, Max goes, "That's quite an expensive lawnmower." And then after that clip played in the cool down room, Oscar goes, "Is that all the highlights? Is that all that happened this whole race?" Yes, that is all that happened this entire race. And then in the post-race press conference, Lando was like, "I wasn't even trying to race Max. I was just trying to cut the grass, like he said. I didn't even know he was there." And Max goes, "I think the grass was like not really well cut." And Lando saw that as well. So he tried to cut it nicely. Also post-race, Carlos was fined for being late to the national anthem, but it's okay. The FIA is really considerate, because it turns out Carlos was having a stomach problem and he was with the doctor getting medication so that he could race. And so he showed up a little late. And they said, it is noted in the penalty guidelines prescribed in Appendix B of the FIA International Sporting Code, they list a penalty for this offense of 60,000 euros. However, in mitigation, the driver stated that just prior to the anthem, he experienced discomfort due to a stomach issue, which delayed his appearance on the grid. This was verified by Dr. Messina of MedX, who confirmed the issue and stated he had provided appropriate medication for the driver. Notwithstanding the above, displaying respect for the national anthem is a high priority, and all parties need to consider every eventuality in planning to be in position for the anthem by the required time. Hence, a penalty similar to that imposed for a similar breach in Canada in 2024 is imposed. So instead of €60,000, he was only fined 20,000 euros for getting medical attention prior to the anthem. Should have planned that better, Carlos. Have your stomach bugs in advance and not right before a national anthem. The FIA is psychotic. And also, we still don't know where that's going. We don't know where their fines are going, what they're being spent on. They're just being spent. So, all right, so the results. Driver of the day is officially Yuki Tsunoda. The commentators are saying that makes about just as much sense as Kimi last week in China, but that's not really true considering we're in his hometown. So why would it? Like, no, he didn't perform well enough for driver of the day, but it's not like crazy to understand why he was chosen by his own people. But yeah, he did not perform driver of the day, a driver of the day drive. I do want to shout out Isaac and Kimi for both outperforming every other rookie on the grid. Kimi has obviously been the best performing rookie, but Isaac's doing great. And Kimi also has arguably the best car on the grid. So he does have a slight advantage, whereas Isaac is driving a bad car. And so it is more impressive, not more impressive, but it is impressive that he's able to get that up into the points. The dick in the box is just Red Bull. Just Red Bull. They're treating Liam like shit. They are dick for treating Yuki like shit too. They're just like, their only saving grace is Max. And with a hunk of junk and a shitty team morale, like Max can only do so much. So Red Bull's a dick. The results are Max, Lando, Oscar Piastri, Charles, George, Kimi, Lewis, Isaac, Alex, Ollie, Fernando, Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly, Carlos, Jack Doohan, Nico Hülkenberg, Liam Lawson, Esteban Ocon, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Lance Stroll. And I would like to give a shout out to Fernando for finally finishing his first race of the season. The current standings are as follows. Lando with 62 points, Max with 61 points. Got to get that strategy under control. Oscar with 49 points, George Russell with 45 points, Kimi with 30 points, Charles with 20 points, Alex Albon with 18 points, Lewis Hamilton with 15 points, Esteban with 10, and Lance with 10. And I forgot to include the standings. Sorry. We'll go over them in a week. For the drivers, for the teams I forgot to include. And that's it for the Japanese Grand Prix. Here is the okonomiyaki. I hope I said that right. Can you see it? Ta-da! Okay. Next week is Bahrain, so we'll see each other in just a few days' time. In the meantime, make sure you follow at BoxBoxF1 Pod on social to keep up in between races, and make sure to follow, share, subscribe, and get a few new boxes along the way. Until next week, Box.